Hey guys, what's happening? So we're back for more One World Under Doom with Red Hulk issue 1. And so leading up to this, I've done a couple videos on the return of Red Hulk as well as the One World Under Doom prequel to set the stage for what's happening now. And I will say this is the kind of series you can just hop into right here, and it'll make sense for the most part. But if you need to know more about how he got here and how Thunderbolt Ross got his powers back, I also got those videos linked in the description for anyone who needs a bit more context. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so for Red Hulk issue 1, this continues the story that we saw in Incredible Hulk issue 800, where Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross crossed paths with Dr. Doom. And that was many months before One World Under Doom kicked off, so for a while here we're going to be picking up where that left off and filling in the gaps in between. And we'll talk about how everything comes together as we make our way through this. But with how this starts out, we find Thunderbolt Ross on a flight, just moments before his watch alarm goes off. And when he heads to the restroom on this plane, this is where we kinda get the idea of where things are going. Cause for one, it's important to know that he's on a Chinese airline right now. And the reason why his watch alarm went off was because he knew when this timer went off, this plane would be exactly where he needed it to be to get him where he needs to go. And it's crazy how this plays out, cause he just heads to the restroom, he takes a second in the mirror before hulking out, only to then tear his way right out of this plane. Also, he can attack a nuclear facility. But throughout this, he explains more of the details because he says, strategy should always be divorced from emotion. Innocent lives will be lost. Collateral damage is inevitable and necessary. That is the price of war. Some people die poorly so that more may live in prosperity. The Chinese airliner will contain 400 some passengers. For maximum impact, the manifest should include a few political figures and celebrities. The world will believe it was shot out of the sky by North Korea. This belief will be reinforced once I breach the facility and launch nuclear missiles at Shanghai, Seoul, Tokyo, and Manila. This will create chaos throughout Asia, where alliances are already fractious. Hypothetically, this could be accomplished by a highly trained fire squad, but then you create more possibilities for witnesses as well as mechanical and human error. I would do it alone. And this is where we see Thaddeus Ross has been in a cell by himself this whole time, which is where he's been held for quite some time by Dr. Doom. So none of the things we saw at the start of the story actually happened, but instead this has all just been Thaddeus Ross going through a number of different simulations so he could provide Doom with a ton of different war strategies and tactics. Which is where all of this ties into Incredible Hulk issue 800, because at the time when we found out that the government was using Thaddeus Ross to carry out missions that wouldn't tie things back to the US, prior to One World Under Doom, Doom knew about this. So he captured Thunderbolt Ross so he could observe and learn from his strategies as a general. But with how this is done, where we pick up here in issue 1, we don't know how long Thaddeus Ross has been here, and neither does he. But it's implied that he's been here quite some time, according to his beard gains, and there's at least this level of understanding to where Thaddeus knows that Doom has set up this whole think tank situation for Doom to learn from him, he just doesn't know why. But just after this last exercise, we see Thaddeus get upset, but he can't actually Hulk out, since Doom's got him wearing an inhibitor collar, but this has him understandably frustrated, because he's given Doom so much, only to receive the bare minimum in return. So Ross is like, man, let me get a call, some sunlight, fresh air, something. So he goes off, cause again, this has been very one-sided, and he has no clue how long he's been here, whether it's been months, a year, he doesn't know. And this just leads to Doom giving him a bit of a reminder on who's in charge here, because Doom tells him, take a long hard look at yourself, General Ross, inside and out. You have forgotten your dignity, and you have forgotten too, who holds all the power in this situation. I encourage you to return yourself to order like a good soldier. This will serve as an uncomfortable reminder of who commands you. And as Doom is just smacking Ross across this whole room here, he goes on to tell him, your rank is no longer relevant. Nor is your country. You serve me, and you serve Latveria. And mind you, this whole time, Ross didn't ask to be here. He's literally a prisoner who's been resisting Doom since he got here. And since Doom has made the Red Hulk a prisoner inside of General Ross, he's come to the place where now he's gonna do something about it. Cause he says here, the weight of millions of pounds of rock feels like it's pressing down, as I'm trapped in here and the Red Hulk is trapped inside me. Day after day, week after week, month after month, Doom demands we work our way through military scenarios, war games. Why? He won't tell me. Maybe it's an amusement, maybe it's a test, maybe it's a rehearsal. So again, he's trying to figure out why exactly Doom is doing this. And all we really know at this point, going by One World Under Doom issue 1, is that Emperor Doom mentioned that he was ending all war. So possibly this could be a way of him getting more information on how to do that in the most efficient way. But in the here and now, General Ross has no clue what this information is being used for. But just moments later, Ross notices that he hears a tapping on the wall. That sounds like a familiar rhythm, and it's not long before he realizes that someone's trying to communicate by way of Morse code. Man, as it turns out, that someone is Deathlock, who at this time is just looping a short message that says, "I am Deathlock, and I am a prisoner." And over time, Ross realizes that Deathlock isn't the only person sending this kind of message out, because aside from Ross, Doom's also captured General Simon Riker of the US Army, Hugo Perez, head of the Hook Cartel, Li Tang, who's a professor of political science at Howard University, as well as Aaron Stack, the Machine Man. And it's likely that Doom has captured more people. It's just that this group is in a relatively close space, and they're the ones who just happen to know how to communicate in Morse code. So in the days that followed, they stayed in communication. And this is where we find out a bit more about some of these guys. With Deathlock, who was brought in a few weeks ago from another dimension, we find out here that Doom planned to use him as an analog agent in the digital world. But after several probationary missions, Doom sensed insubordination, so he locked the guy up. While on the other hand with Machine Man, he was brought in a few days ago, as a result of Doom capturing him in the middle of a massive data breach. And I mean, Machine Man was probably messing with the PlayStation servers, who knows. But after talking to these guys, this is where Ross gets a better idea on what Doom is doing. Because Doom's basically gathered this group and we don't know who else just yet. But he's brought all of these people in so he can study all of their strategies, whether they be US military, army, or air force, an international terrorist, and he's brought in individuals who are highly capable in the fields of either digital or analog technology. And it's not even a case where Doom needs their intelligence or their expertise, so to speak. And Ross sees that here, because collectively, and just from the group that we're aware of at this point, but collectively, Doom is using these guys and whoever else to study how they would be used to start a war. And it's not like Doom is just stopping there. He's got villain GPT running on all tensor cores. So Doom's effectively built a think tank dedicated to global war. And since Ross has been here the longest, after communicating with the others, he pieces this together fairly quickly. And he admits for a while he's let the isolation get to him, so he cleans up, so he shaves his beard, and he gets back to doing those sit-ups, squats, and push-ups, because now that he has a better understanding of what's going on here, he's ready to focus on the next thing, which is how do they get out, and how do they stop Doom. And it reminds me of that old saying where it's like, people don't lack motivation, they lack clarity. So it's not like Ross was unmotivated, he just needed a little more information. But in the days that follow, there's other things that he learns here too. Because with staying in communication with the other prisoners, he learned that the Doom who comes to his cell to bring food, it's not actually Doom, it's a Doombot. Because the other prisoners get their food around the same time or close to it. And it's routine that they stand in the back of their cell while the meal is being delivered, so the force field could be disengaged and minimize the chances of someone trying to make an escape while the force field's down. And what they end up doing, since Machine Man's cell is one of the ones closest to Ross, they have him provoke Doom, much like how they all do, to the point where it leads to Machine Man getting broken up, because since Machine Man doesn't have his powers, this at least gives him more access to his components, which then allows him to climb into the ventilation shaft and make his way over to Ross's cell. And so together, they've come to the assumption that their cells are somewhere between 50 and 100 yards apart, and they know they got about 10 minutes till the next meal is served. But at the same time, none of these guys have a clock. So these are really rough estimates here, and it comes down to with Machine Man making his way over, he's moving a lot slower than he would under normal conditions. So if Ross had to guess, right now he'd say they have under a minute to spare. And as it turns out, that's really all they need, because when the Doombot gets there, it disables the force field just before it walks through the glass door, only for it to see that Ross isn't there. And I'm just thinking like, man, this Doombot, you could have just looked through the glass and seen that, bro. But this leads to the Doombot racing off, believing that Ross has left his cell. And Ross describes this as being either like your story of the Trojan horse entering the city of Troy, or your story of the 300 defending the pass, because sometimes you need to find the greater strength in the maneuver. And that's what they end up doing here. Because he goes on to say, we could be miles underground, we could be lost or gassed in that maze of vents. I don't make plans based on unknown variables, I make plans based on what I know. And I knew this Doombot would have no reason to re-engage the force field if a cell was empty. And I know its chip technology is the key to this prison. And that's where we see Ross use the Doombot's hand, and likely a bit of help from Machine Man as well, to use the chip technology on the Doombot to unlock his inhibitor collar And as soon as he does, a ton of other Doom bots come racing in. But the thing is, now that Ross has his collar removed, he's now able to let the Red Hulk just take it from here. And when this happens, we're kind of left with the cliffhanger here before we go into the next issue titled The Great Escape. And you know, it's like, I can't help but to think that this is Doom collecting information on how Ross would escape, because all of this is fake. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.